Good morning again, and especially to our young people. So this week, throughout Vacation Bible School, you guys were learning a few things, right? Raise your hand if you felt like you learned something new. See a bunch of hands going up. Good deal. How about, did you learn that God made you? Or that God is for you? Or that God is always with you? How about God will always love you? And how about God made you for a reason? I think y'all learned a good bit. I think y'all learned a lot this week. Would you agree? See, these simple truths seem to be so age appropriate, right? These simple truths are the same ones, I think, that we, as the adults, we as the older generations, I say that with fear and trembling, but we as the older people in the congregation today, we still wrestle with these same truths. And yet, our young people can say loud and proud, "Wow, God." Simple things like God making us, God is for us, God is always with us, God will always love us, and God made each and every one of us for a reason. Wow, God. These simple truths are the seed that Jesus is talking about in his parable today. Now I know my temptation is to feel like I have to be the one to give the truth. When I was right before I entered the seminary, I worked at a summer camp. And I would hang out with a bunch of little ones all week. And I would try and teach them about the faith. I would try and bring them to an encounter with Jesus. And during this whole week, all these weeks, a month in, I found myself being really, really frustrated. Because I felt like I wasn't getting across to them. I think this is something that we will see a lot with parents, teachers, religious educators, probably some of our volunteers. Man, I don't feel like I'm getting across this stuff, this person of Jesus to these people, to these young ones. When I was working at this camp, there was a guy who came and gave us a retreat, and he used today's gospel for a talk to us. And the first thing he said, he asked the question, he said, "Who is the sower in your ministry?" Like, who is the sower as you're working as a counselor with these kids? Who is the sower as you were volunteering for Vacation Bible School? Man, my first thought was, well, I am. I'm supposed to be giving this stuff to these kids. And whenever it came time, he says, if you think it's you, you're wrong. Jesus is the sower. God is the sower. Well, now I started thinking, well, then what's my role? What is my role when it comes to working with these little ones? I think the question could be asked for all of us. What is my role when it comes to working with our younger generations? Our family members? Those who we teach? Those who we are given the responsibility of bringing up in the faith? What is our role? The guy then finished the statement. He says, your role is to simply be good dirt. For us, do we examine our hearts, the garden of our heart? When we do we find dirt that's packed down and been traveled on that no seed can penetrate, like the road? Or do we find seed that's amongst the rocks, that when we receive the truth of God, we get really excited about it? But at the first thing that could possibly cause it to go away, the plant's scorched. Or in our hearts, do we have a bunch of thorns and thistles or sins and vices that can choke out the fruit before we ever get to taste it? Or do we hopefully and continue to strive for a rich, deep soil that's ready to receive the seed of truth, allow it to take root in our lives, and share the fruits with those around us? See, oftentimes when we get frustrated, it's because we're trying to do God's work. It's God's role to give the faith. It's God's role to drop in the truth. It's God's role to have an encounter with each individual. Doesn't matter the age. Our role is simply to be a witness. Pope Paul VI once said in a document, "Modern man does not listen to teachers. Modern man listens to witnesses." When it comes to our faith, do we try to teach it, or do we try to show it? To live it, show it, exactly. These simple truths, like in our life, do we live the fact that God made us? Do we live the fact that God is on our side? Do we live the fact that God is always with us, that He'll always love us, and that He made each and every one of us for a reason? If we lived this out fully in our lives, imagine what the world would look like. Imagine the difference that the different way our culture would look. That we would be in communion with a God who loves us that much to do those things for us. Now, these may have been themes for our Vacation Bible School, but I think we can learn from our youngest, as I said last week. Today, as we approach this altar, as we are fed with the Word and the Sacrament, may our hearts, that soil of our hearts, be tilled up. May we receive the Word of God anew, on soil that is rich, that is deep, and that is ready to nourish that seed. May today be a time of growth, a time for sowing, so that one day we may reap those fruits and share them with the rest of the world. God had made you. Wow, God. God is for you. God is always with you. God will always love you. And God made you for a reason. May we be witnesses first